Hello and welcome back to Room for TCG. My name is Joe. Drink of the day is a can of Sprite, mixing it up. And today Bandai revealed the OP17 leaders. Not the blue one, we still don't know about that. I'm guessing it's going to be something very sort of story related at this point. However, they've revealed all the other ones. We've got the Shanks, we've got Lin and we've got Kaido to talk about today, as well as a handful of SRs for these decks. But first, if you need a new deck box or binder, stop kidding around and head over to Sleeve Chief. This Sunday, 8 PM European time, they're going to have a restock of their new, or their old, Darkness binder that's been out of stock for ages. I love it. It's a great binder. And also this new green Oni deck box. There's also a matching deck box for the binder, if you prefer that design. But yeah, this is brand new design. They did it in red before. Now it's in green. What a treat. If you want either of these, head over to Sleeve Chief on Sunday, 8 PM European time. Code MARINE for 5% off your order. Thank you to Sleeve Chief for sponsoring this video. And starting off with red, we'd already had the reveal of the red Newgate leader. However, we've got the reveal of the alt art, and it reminds me a lot of the previous red Newgate alt art, but it looks pretty cool. And then we got this big 10-12 Newgate, and all of the four Emperor's leaders in this set, other than Luffy, have these 10-12 SRs. They all cost 10, they all cost 12. Which is pretty cool. There's a very interesting thing in the card game. Like a handful of exceptions, like the 5 Elders. Every single 10-12 is a Yonko. It's only Luffy, Big Mom, Newgate, Kaido, and the other Yonkos are Buggy, Blackbeards, all of them that have these 10-12s. Roger has 10-13s, and that's just a really cool lore thing that I love. They're the most powerful characters in the universe, alongside like the 5 Elders, and there might be one other that I'm forgetting, but I'm not sure. Remind me in the comments. But I really love that all these Emperors are there. All the 10-12s are always the Emperors. Anyway, cutting out the yapping, this card seems very, very powerful. Firstly, if your opponent has a character with 10,000 power or more, give this card in your hand -4 cost, so it's a 6-12, which is just pretty good. Then on play, your mono-coloured leader's base power becomes 8,000 until the end of your opponent's next end phase. First mono-coloured leader locked card, I believe. We've had multi-coloured leaders. We've had the Gear 2, which is locked to you being Blurple. But yeah, I believe this is the first mono-colour locked card. And this is just going to buff your Newgate to 8k power, which when combined with your leader effect, being able to trash a brick to become a 4k, that's going to give you some really good defense into anything that's trying to go wide with 5s or 6s. You're just laughing at them. Of course, this is coming down very late if your opponent does not play a 10,000 power unit, and there's a couple of interesting interactions with 10,000 power units. The main one being 6 cost an L. If you go second into an L and they play their L on 5 Don, that is a 10,000 power unit. This Newgate doesn't specify base power, just power. So you can drop this on 6 and become an 8k power leader and develop a 10-12 that even an L is probably not getting rid of that. They're going to have to invest very, very, very heavily to clear that on their turn, which is incredible. Nullifies their leader swing, nullifies all their weenies, even basically nullifies dog. So they just get one swing with this, and because you have a 4k, maybe you can even get out of that, although probably not if they stack the dons on it from the leader effect. So that seems great, but not only is this obviously incredible to cheat on curve into an L, but if you take odd curve into a deck that plays this 8-cost Blackbeard or 8-cost Moria, those are 10,000 power characters. And like, sure, you're only playing a 10-cost character, like 1 Don early on 9, but it means that you don't care about having bad curve, which is just a lovely trait to have. If this is like a 4, 6, 8, 10 deck, then the fact that you can play this after your opponent plays their Teach or their Moria is great. And also, you're just going to have 3 more Don to swing with. Maybe you can use some counter events. Maybe Conqueror's Haki could be something we look at. With that extra Don, if your opponent's can be like, oh, I guess I have to swing 888, which is not great, but Conqueror's Haki gets you out of that, which is pretty cool. And of course into Red Ace as well, or in a mirror. If they play this 8-cost Newgate, then again you just get the Dons. Maybe you can even play blockers, use counter events, or just swing bigger. Also into Mihawk. Mihawk likes to play the 9-cost Mihawk. And obviously there's other boss monsters. There's lots more we're going to actually talk about in this video. But yeah, just having 3 to 4 spare Don, even if you don't get to cheat this out early, just feels really nice. And there's a couple cards that can sort of combo with this. The one that shines most to me is Uta. If you play this for 6, which by the time you get to 10, you quite often will be, I think, in most decks outside of sort of Rosie and GU Luffy, are playing some kind of big dude. So then dropping this Uso for 2 gives you a nice blocker. It's a 2k, so you're pretty happy to include it anyway. And then you've still got 2 more Don for events, for swinging, whatever. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this card, and I'm also a big fan of this card in Red Ace. Being able to give this Rush sounds disgusting. Yeah, man, I'm going to play a 6-12, give it Rush, buff my leader to 8k, and still, if it did actually cost 6, you have 4 more Don to piss around with. Like, it's crazy. Into an L, I'm not sure you'd want to attack with this immediately, because then they have an easier time removing it. But you can potentially be swinging like 8-12 on your 6 Don turn. That's mad. This seems excellent. I also like the potential in Shanks. You know me. I love coping on Shanks. And this does seem like a broadly better version of the 9-cost Shanks. I don't think strictly better because that is obviously searchable. And it has a much lower activation cost. It costs 6. But this pushing you to 8,000 just feels insane, man. It's so hard to interact with 8,000, 9,000 power leaders. Like, 7k ain't what it used to be. But 8 and 9 are still big-ass leaders. So I think this Newgate's excellent. And if we get more good mono-red leaders in the future, I'd not be surprised to see this see play for a long time. Not being leader locked at all is crazy. For the red section, I'm not going to be talking about any other cards that you would potentially buy. I've covered them before. Things like 5-cost Secret Ace, Moby Dick seem good. Maybe the 6-cost Marco if you're afraid of removal. And of course your classic red staples, things like 7-cost Sorrow. But we've talked about staples before. In this video, I want to keep it to cards that I'm now more interested in, following these new reveals. And for me, this Newgate, other than like the Uta and Ace Leader, I suppose, which I think this is a huge buff to Red Ace Leader, I don't think this changes too much in terms of cards you might want to buy. Moving on to green Shanks. I love Shanks, and this leader looks sick. For Red Hair Pirates, not film, notably. I saw a post on X that someone said that he was wearing red trousers and he only wears those in the film. I guess that tinfoil hat theory failed. Something like that anyway. But activate main once per turn, you can trash 1 card from your hand or rest 1 of your Don cards. One of your opponent's arrested characters, any cost, will not become active in the next refresh phase. This feels just like a power crept version of Bonnie. Obviously, Bonnie still has her strengths. She has Supernovas, so she can use Supernova locked cards. But Shanks gets access to Slash locked cards because he has the Slash trait. So swings and roundabouts. And this is much more proactive, right? Bonnie's reactive. Your opponent can try and play around Bonnie. If you tap down a guy and then just freeze it, your opponent cannot play around that. Like, this is just not going to happen. Nice that you can trash a card, although you're probably almost always going to prefer to rest a Don. But if you've got excess bricks in your hand, maybe you'd prefer to toss one of them to just use that Don to swing a bit bigger, which is cool. And they've also revealed 2 new SRs for this deck. Firstly, Yasop, 5/6 1k, on play, draw 1, and then rest an 8 or less. Insane. Rests realistically everything on curve. Even an L that's been buffed by Vari can be rested, which is just mega. And then end of your turn, you get to restand one of your characters with the Red Hair Pirates type. Obviously, this first effect is designed to synergize with your leader. You're going to play Yasop, and then as long as you have 1 more Don, which we might get cards that restand Don within this package, or you can just play him on his own on 6. And then you just freeze that character immediately to just slow down the game and temper your opponent's aggression. The fact that at the end of your turn, this guy restands any of your Red Hair Pirates is great. Obviously, he can just restand himself, but if you've played out something on the previous turn and this guy comes in active, that's brilliant. But it also means that when you play him off lore, because you will be playing lore in this deck, I'm almost certain, you can just restand him, the Yasop, at the end of the turn. You go hand neutral, because lore picks up a searcher, plays this Yasop, the Yasop draws 1, so the 2 cards that you've played are replaced in hand. You get to rest that dude, and then even if this is your 6 Don turn, you don't have any more Don, you can still trash 1 to get a freeze, which is worth, in my opinion. And then, even though Yasop comes in rested off a lore, you can restand him at the end of the turn, which is just incredible. As a result, I think it's probably worth picking up the lore package. This Odin from the new starter deck seems like a relatively similar card. They both draw 1 and sort of deny an attack. Obviously, this works better. Obviously, this only really works to its full extent in red hair pirates, green Shanks. Whereas Odin sort of denies that attack in whatever. But I could very easily see you playing both, or even like, I don't know, 2 copies of both. Other good targets for lore, as always, Green Bonnie Secret is just incredible. It's another hat card that goes hand neutral. The Don that comes back is cool. You can maybe use it for your leader effect. And it becomes a blocker later, which is nice. And then Tashigi and Smoke are another couple of slash options that you can find off Piranha Searcher. I would 100% be grabbing Piranha Searchers at this point. Yes, most of the other red hair pirates may well not be slash, but there's a Shanks we're going to talk about in a minute that's slash. This lore is slash. You can play other slash targets off the lore like the Odin, like the Smoker, or even like this Tashigi that rests at base 6, and then you can stun it with leader, even though you won't get the rested Dons for free. I think the Piranha pack is very likely to be popular in this deck. But not only that, we've got another one. This Shanks seems mad. 10-12 rush, good start, red hair pirates. On play, restand 2 of your Don, then rest all of your opponent's characters. All of them. Every single one. Doesn't matter the cost. Nice blockers, idiot. Here's my 10-12 Roger clone, basically. Yeah, when you're going for lethal, this just rests all of your opponent's blockers. So any Borsalinos, Whitebeards, Blackbeards, just mad. This is like the ultimate lethal card for green. Now, DMG, eat your heart out. Sure, you can't rest Don. It is what it is. Oh the pain. This doesn't have to just be a lethal card. Because you get those Don back, that's going to pay for your leader effect. You can rest the whole board, freeze something with leader effect. And then you've got one more Don. Maybe you want to leave a Don for a counter event. Or you need to swing 6 with your leader into a 6k lead, something like that. But I also think this is going to be possibly even better in Mihawk. And Mihawk will become 6k into Shanks, which is very funny. So this in Mihawk, because you can then like rest your stage to restand 3 more. This is a 5-12 rush that rests everything. 5-12, that's insane. And it's slash searchable. You can find it off the damn Piranha Searcher. Incredible. Also synergizes exceptionally with Electrical Luna in Mihawk. Say you're playing into a Rosie. Nice Rosie Lords you got there, bozo. Let's rest them all and then freeze them all. Insane. This card seems crazy, man. I'm really hot on these green cards. I think they're awesome. I think these green cards are really awesome, and I'm looking forward to playing this Shanks deck, man. This looks sick, and we're going to have a ton more red hair pirates as well. Worth noting the Mihawk from the Zoro starter deck can only play slash characters, so it ain't playing this Yasop, so I think you are going to want lore. And that's just something worth noting. And here are another few cards that you can consider playing. I don't think we'll go down a full Supernova build, but you never know. If the rest of the red hair pirate support is bad, which I can't see happening, but you could consider picking up some of these cards. I know you're strong. He's just like Luna. Different. Kid Killer, Lord Beppo, and they're all options, although, to be honest, I feel like we're probably not playing Supernova build. In terms of red hair pirates, there's only these 2. If we don't get a better play on sort of your 7 Don turn, 8 Don turn, maybe the Shanks could be good. It does provide good value, sort of turn after turn. But it is very, very slow outside of Mihawk, so I'm personally not convinced. And 9-cost Shanks combines quite nicely with this. You can rest everything, freeze one thing, and then the following turn you can pop it. Maybe there's a particularly important character that works on, or even a character that you've frozen on a previous turn, you can pop with Shanks. I don't know. But yeah, overall, that feels a little bit slower. Once you develop one of these, surely like 2 of these, you can just try and win. But we'll see. It could be worth picking up at least a couple copies, while this card's quite cheap. And moving on to purple, this Kaido leader is really cool. I like this one. When attacking and on your opponent's attack once per turn, Don -1, give you one of your opponent's characters -2k power for the turn. This reminds me very much of the Crocodile, 6-8 Croc. I love this in purple yellow Croc. This is a cool effect. For Don -1, you'd get a free 2k. This isn't quite a free 2k because it can't affect your opponent's leader, obviously. But on defense, this is a free 2k into any of your opponent's characters. And on offense, this is going to make board clear that little bit easier. For some obvious synergies with the power reduction, MrMaCHONaCHOMan, you can reduce a 7k base power unit to 5 and then MrMaCHONaCHOMan it. What a treat. Yes, there's a lot of Don deramp, but with Purple Animal Kingdom Pirates, we have quite a good few options for that. But also Gum Lightning. You can reduce an 8k power unit. Maybe your Blackbeard opponent has played out a Shiryu. You reduce the Shiryu to 6k with your leader effect, then use Gum Lightning to pop it. Seems pretty good to me. In terms of paying for this Don cost, we already have a good amount of ramp in AKP. This Queen sort of drawer, let's go with that. Also has the ability to just rest 2 Don every turn. Obviously this was very good back in the old Kaido to just give you that guaranteed ramp when you whiffed Island to get you to 6 Don where you want to play out this King. But in this, you could even use this later in the game. But yeah, this King is probably going to be in the deck. Yes, there will be another character called King in this set, almost certainly. But even if you play another King later, just the initial ramp is crazy. And maybe this King is good enough that you don't play the King from the set. We'll just have to see. However, this guy's also got not 1, but 2 tendrils. The strongest creature alive, just had to have 2 of them. We'll start off with this card on the left. This is a 10-12 blocker. And in your turn, when a Don card is returned to from your field to your Don deck, you ramp 1 back as active, and then restand a Don. So if you play this and then use your leader effect, you go from having 9 rested and 1 in Don deck to having 8 rested and 2 active. Well, that 2 active could well be used to pay for a Gum Lightning. It could also be used to pay for a Gamma Knife, which then you've got minus 7,000 power, and 7 plus 5 is 12, so then MrMaCHONaCHOMan can rest literally anything in the game. And you'll still be at 7 Don after you do all that. So if you've got King on the board, you can go back to 9 and even use your leader effect on defense and still draw to 10 next turn, which seems pretty good to me. I do think this card is a little slow if you're not comboing it with other sort of removal effects, but a 10-12 blocker you can never trifle with. And the extra Dons you're going to get out of this, you could even just use them for counter events. Like, maybe you just want to use a slow beam sword. Or you're going to have 2 actives. That's not the worst thing in the world. I think, for me, the better of these 2 Kaidos, though, is this one. 10-12 Kaido, again. All character cards in your hand without counter have 1,000 counter, which is lovely. Animal Kingdom Pirates is known for its brick scenario. On the previous slide, this King, which you're probably going to be playing, is a brick. So turning him into a 1k is cool. Turns your other Kaidos into 1ks as well. But activate main once per turn, Don -1. If this character was played on this turn, negate the effects of up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less, and then KO it. Brilliant. 6-8 and L, goodbye. Goodbye, 6-8 and L. You will not be missed. I'm fucking sick of this card. I'm sick of this deck. And it seems like a lot of these new 10-12s seem fairly designed around fucking over an L, which is awesome. I'm pleased. I don't like this deck. So this guy, obviously he can negate other things, but this is going to be one of the best things you can hit. Other targets you can negate and KO, Rosnante and Law. When you negate it, it loses the name Trafalgar Law, so Rosie leader effect can't save it. So then you can just get rid of that, which is pretty cool. You won't proc on KOs of things like the Yellow Nami. The Loki in this set, who gains a bunch of cost, you negate the extra cost, and it's a 6 cost base, so you can remove the Loki, which is pretty cool. Won't be able to hit Shiryu because the effect that buffs it to 7 is on the Blackbeard leader, so you won't be able to really get rid of anything into Blackbeard other than Jesus Burgess, actually, which is quite relevant now that I think about it. Yeah, there'll be other things as well. 4-cost Marco blocker. It's not the craziest effect in the game, but in certain matchups, this is going to be game-changing, especially for an L. And the on-board effect is not to be trifled with. It seems like this Kaido deck is just going to be based around ramping and then chaining these big 10-12s. At least that's the impression I get. And then between them, you've got interesting combo effects with your events, your leader effect, MrMaCHONaCHOMan, Gamma Knife, Gum Lightning. But there's going to be a whole other swath of support in this set for this leader. And I'm already sort of intrigued. Both of these cards seem a little slow, but do bear in mind if you find this King, you're getting there on turn 4. which is pretty good. Last minute addition, I think I potentially didn't mention enough in this section how good this when attacking is just for battling for board. If your opponent has a blocker that's too big for you to swing through, well, you can reduce that so they can't block with it. But also, like, especially when you combine it with something like the 7-cost Kaido that can rest a character, you can then attack with your leader, reduce that character's power, and really start combating your opponent's board quite nicely. I think this power reduction making you pretty good at battling for board, combined with that big Kaido being a nice big blocker, is going to give this deck sort of an inevitability in that you will play board in a lot of matchups, and you'll be very, very efficient at it because minus 2,000 for basically no cost, at least once you get to 10, is really, really powerful. That's a crazy debuff to get for free. Like, that's very, very good on offense as well. I just wanted to add this because I think I understated how good this is going to be for helping clear important threats on your opponent's board. I also think this Kaido is potentially interesting for another few decks. Both Pudding and Katakuri are already probably playing the Searcher event, so this is searchable in those decks, which is pretty cool. And this gives something else for Pudding to ramp to. Pudding used to just ramp to 10 mum, and since 10 mum rotated, Pudding has been ramping to kind of fuck all, and that's one of the big problems with the deck. But this kind of being a sort of an interesting mid-range removal, big body that can help with Pudding's brick situation is pretty cool. I don't know if it's going to change the deck, but I think it's interesting for both of these that it's searchable. And in Katakuri, again, Katakuri, at least at the moment, it feels like Enel is a rancid matchup. But it's nice that you now have a sort of a ramp-toable answer to Enel. Obviously, it doesn't work perfectly. Your 7-cost Pudding is still kind of gets fucked by Enel because they don't have enough Dom on the field. But it's nice that you at least have an option to just get rid of the guy. And develop a 10-12 that's very hard to interact with. Also, very cool interaction in Purple Black King for the handful of Copas that deck still has. Because you can give -2 cost, this can then hit an 8 because it's an Activate main. So you can play this, use King's effect, then use the Activate main on Kaido, and pop some 8s. Maybe you pop a Blackbeard in Nami, not in Blackbeard, but in Nami. You pop a Moria, pop the 8-cost Whitebeard in something like Ace. A handful of notable things that you can interact with. And maybe if you have some on-board reduction, you can even pop 10 costs, which could be interesting. It doesn't fix King's issue where he just runs out of cards constantly, but don't worry about it. King's back. And here are some other cards that you could consider picking up, alongside the ones we've already talked about. Gamma Knife, Queen, King. Basically, all of these EBO4 AKP cards are pretty good. The 7-cost Kaido is a nice lethal option. You get to rest to 7, which is most blockers in the game outside those big 10 costs. And there's another body like that King that can't be removed in battle, so you just create a really sticky board, which is cool. Black Maria is the best Animal Kingdom Pirates 2K. The effect's fine. It never feels good playing this card out, but, you know, maybe you'd want to pick it up. We're going to claim the One Piece, I think, is going to be pretty standard and potentially even gives you options to play cards like 9 mum or maybe even the new 10 mum from the Katakuri deck, although I'm not sure about that one. Herkai Ocean Sovereignty for a bit of board removal potential, and Flame Dragon Torch is just a 1-on 4k for your leader. It's going to be very hard to interact with Kaido's board, given that the 7-cost Kaido and your King have basically, you can't attack them. And these guys are so damn big that you're probably not going to want to attack them. So the fact that Flame Dragon Torch only buffs leader, not too bad. And finally, yellow. Well, not finally, we've got one black card to talk about, but Lin Lin is the last new leader. When attacking, trash one card from your hand. Your opponent chooses either you trash one more and then heal from the top of your deck, or they trash one. So either both players are going to trash one, which is sort of just going to simplify the board state, or you trash 2 and heal. Trash 2 to heal just feels like a better version of Moria's first leader effect, but naturally this is Lin Lin's only leader effect, and you do have less agency because your opponent gets to choose. This effect feels fine. I think this deck is going to be very, very dependent on the rest of the support, because compared to sort of other yellow leaders, I don't know, this doesn't seem super impressive. It really doesn't. But never count out a leader that doesn't seem super impressive on the face of it. GU Luffy felt quite underwhelming when just the leader effect was revealed, and that's ended up being potentially the best leader in the set. And both Rayleigh and Enel had big restrictions that made people, you know, a little unsure on whether they were going to be good or not, but they both ended up being very good as well. So I think, depending on what the support is, this could be very, very good. It's forcing your opponent to make some difficult decisions. But we've also gained this 10-12 Linlin, which is the boss monster for the deck. Your turn, base power of all your characters with a trigger and 4,000 base power becomes 8k. So your little weenie trigger guys are going to be able to swing quite nicely, which is cool. And then on play, draw one, shoot, and then choose one. So you choose, which is good. Either you get a heal, or you get to push one of the opponent's lives to their hand. It's kind of like half a boa, the 9-cost boa. But with this extra effect. Of course, boa's lead locked. But I think a big a big factor in how good this card is going to be how good those base power trigger 4,000 characters that we get in this set are. Because if you can like constantly trigger these out with the healing from leader effect, the healing from this, and then they swing for 8, that's a great number. That's a great number, and it forces your opponent to swing into these like small weenies, lest they just sort of beat them out of the game by swinging for 8, and you're going to have a lot of healing because we're yellow, so you're not going to be easy to rush down either. You're going to be forced to play into this this card's game plan, and I'm very interested to see what those small characters with triggers are. In terms of existing 4k trigger characters, this Bonnie's like, it's perpetually nearly good. Will this be the deck that it's finally good? Maybe, we'll see. But any amount of card draw that this deck can get is going to be useful because you are trashing cards all the time. You'll get good value out of them when you get that heal. Because you go neg 2, but you heal 1, so you get that life back when your opponent attacks. And you also effectively counter that swing because you had the life. So you go sort of hand neutral, but with the chance of a trigger on that interaction. Which is pretty cool, but you are trashing cards, right? You're not going plus off this leader effect. Unless the triggers say draw 2, which, I mean, maybe they will. But yeah, I think the extra draws from Bonnie could be interesting. It could be something nice to play out early. And then when you get this Linlin on the board, you can swing for 9 with Don X1, which is probably going to proc her effect. The other one, I had to dig through the fucking bulk for this thing. Genbo says 3-4 trigger, draw 1, then you have 2 less life, play him. I hope we get better cards than this, but if we don't get better triggered 4k base power dudes, then maybe you'd play Genbo. But probably not. I just thought it's funny to highlight. Drawing 1 and getting an 8,000 power body feels like an insane trigger. Now, outside of Linlin, I don't know where we're going to play this card. Maybe you'd play it in Pudding as another big rampable thing alongside that 10-cost Kaido potential. An L can probably play this. It's an L. But I think this compares fairly poorly to the Hancock. Outside of it, this 4,000 trigger archetype. If you're not playing these characters, then this suddenly is just like a heal draw 1, which compared to Boa just feels worse. I do think, though, with the fact that your opponent may well end up trashing a bunch of their cards with the second effect if they don't want to give you the heal and the chance of a trigger, that this 6-mum could actually be good in this deck. Yes, it's more trash, but I feel like we're going to be operating at a fairly low hand size anyway, and be reliant on a lot of these triggers drawing us cards. But if you sort of force your opponent to trash 1 with your leader effect, and then you play this Linlin, are they going to want to trash 2 more? Probably not, so they're going to end up trashing their life, which is just great value for you. So I could actually see this card having a bit of potential finally. It sort of blends into this hand-starve strategy that I can see this Linlin playing into, which is pretty cool. Other cards you could consider playing, anything that says trigger draw 2. I could see being reasonable in this deck. Especially Baby 5 2k, but maybe even like Shiryu, that 7-cost Sabo, that has a dog shit effect, but says trigger draw 2. Any trigger draw 2 that gives you extra value is going to let you use this leader effect more often, and that seems good to me. Finally, last new card is Usopp. There's not a lot to talk about with this one. It's a 2/1k Elbaf Straw Hat. If there's a character with a cost of 12 or more, he gains 3,000 power, so you can then swing for 5 once you play out like this Loki. Also 5 on defense, so meaningful body, which is quite nice. But on play, top 3, grab an Elbaf card, mill the rest. It's a classic searcher. Seems like a pretty good searcher, given that you're going to be able to swing with this into non-big leaders, although there doesn't seem to be too many of them right now. But also, this is just a great card to be playing off this Luffy. We've seen the Chopper also be popular at the minute, but this is another target, right? This can search Loki and whatever other Elbaf non-straw hat cards we get in the deck, and this just gives a nice target for this Luffy. I can see a curve where you go, I don't know, something on 4, maybe you play a couple of Usops. Then you play Loki on 6, you play Luffy on 12. This has Rush, this has 5,000 power, and you get a search and you get a draw. Good value. Very good value. And then this Loki is obviously a block with your leader effect. The curve is coming together for this deck. It's still missing a lot. Like, I do not think this is enough to make a good deck to compete with the other top dogs. But I'm seeing the pieces come together. This Usopp seems very, very nice for the deck. Now, that's it for new cards, but there was a few more reveals. As sort of expected, we got mangas of the 4 Emperors. I'm going to remove my face for this bit. These all look cool. I like Big Mum's pose. It's very funny. The other 3, have we had mangas of all these before? No, we've not had a Newgate. We've not had any of them, actually, have we, other than Shanks? Shanks had about 1,000 mangas. It's crazy. These are pretty cool. We also got new SP style. There's going to be 10 SPs in this set so far. Maybe there'll be more, we'll find out. But yeah, this style is pretty sick. I do like this. This feels very, very ornate. All the boys sitting on thrones. It's a shame some of these cards are a bit mid. Like, this Blackbeard isn't seeing any play in anything. And this Luffy's brand new, so we'll be interesting to see what this is playing. I think ST21 for sure. I don't know if you'll play this in anything else, though. So, not the best, not like the most playable cards. The Shanks restand all the Don. This is a staple of RG Luffy at this point. But will it be going forwards? Who knows? We'll find out. But this is a good card. And Foot Buggy, for some reason. I don't know why Foot Buggy's here. He's not Foot Buggy in this art, so if you're an OP09 Buggy main, I guess. But, yeah, I don't know about this one. But we also have another SP style. And these are the Conqueror's Haki SP cards. And these look sick. These I'm a fan of. 8 cost Garp. I wish it was 6 cost from the starter deck. But, you know, it is what it is. I'll always take a Navy SP. 8 cost Roger getting an SP is awesome because this does not have an alt art, at least in English. So this getting an alt, all the Roger players and other purple decks that like this can bling out their decks a little bit. Zoro having another SP. I don't think it's like I needed him. He's got a pretty cool art. But, you know, this is a very, very good card. It's going to be a great SP to pull. The Odin from the starter deck is a really cool one. I love that it's all characters that have Conqueror's Haki using that. That's really cool. This Odin's going to be good in various decks, I expect. And then finally, the Yamato and the Rayleigh. Rayleigh, it's not seeing a ton of play at the minute. It's still a sort of hit and miss card in both Boa and Nami. Sometimes you'll see it, but it's certainly not staple. But yeah, nice for him to get another ult. He had the extended art in set. And this Yamato, I'm not a huge fan of this getting another ult. This card had an ult in the set, a really nice one actually. And this card just never stays on the board. You trash this immediately. So I feel like this is one of the cards that you don't bling out because it's always just in the trash. But hey, what do I know? I'm sure the Yamato mains will be happy about this one. And finally, we got our first manga leader. Let me know how you feel about these. Closed captions felt that it was heat. Controversial opinion, I'm not a big manga fan. I don't rate the mangas that much. I prefer the regular alts. This does look cool, but one of my mates said something. And I know I can't look past it now. This just looks like the Western winner cards. It's got the big Luffy face, right? It's the fucking Nightshade big face. And I don't like the Western winner cards. So maybe that's why I don't really like this that much. But I'm sure once I see the texturing with all the gold, this is going to look a lot better. But yeah, I know that's going to be a hot take. I think most people are going to be pretty hyped for these. But that's it. OP17 leaders, let me know what you think. Let me know what combos I missed. This has been a lot longer video than I was expecting with how few cards were revealed. But I think there's also already quite like a good amount of interesting combos to talk about. So hey, I've got timestamped anyway, so you can skip around if you like. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day.